us by. I try to put food on the table and keep us alive. I promise to keep us afloat, no matter how hard times get. But things keep looking worse, and money is making me upset. Honey, I can't be your man, even if I wanted to. I can't be your man. I scream to my face so still. Honey, I can't be your man, not until my pain is through. I can't be your man. Debt keeps piling up, and there's no end in sight. I keep asking myself, what is wrong and what is right? A tax collector's coming, he's got a time to hear me out. Excuses are excuses, son. I've heard them all without a doubt. Honey, I can't be your man, even if I wanted to.
How are we doing today? I have a special guest, one of my former clients, and EMA Supercross Pro, Tristan Lane, is going to be joining us today. Hey Tristan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good, good. So we're going to talk to Tristan a little bit today about where he started and where he is now. So like I said, he is one of my former clients. Started working with Tristan when he was real young. So I'm going to have Tristan actually tell you a little bit about himself and how he got into dirt bikes. Tristan?
Yeah. Well, listen, I started when I was 8 years old, which in my sport is actually pretty late, but got a dirt bike for Christmas, kind of just a pretty typical, kid, just wanted to get a little more adventurous, and I loved bicycles, and the natural progression was to go and ride a dirt bike eventually, but started riding locally, just having fun with it, and then by the time I was, I'd say 9 or 10, started racing a little bit. Did totally normal stuff though. I mean, went to school, public school all the way, actually went to college too, and decided when I was probably 18 or so, I was like, I really want to race professionally. So after doing all the amateur racing and stuff, I eventually progressed into the pro ranks, and now I'm a privateer racing the Supercross and Motocross series. But yeah, just getting better every year, and hopefully just gonna get on a factory ride in the next few years. That's the goal, at least.
Good. Yeah. Well, Tristan, we're also going to be taking some questions. So as they come in, I'm just going to stop and just ask you, so we don't miss any of the questions. So I already have one, and it's from Carlos, and he wants to know, how did you like the Daytona Supercross?
Yeah, Carlos, it was awesome. Growing up in DeLand, I mean, literally 20 minutes from the speedway, Daytona is like my stomping grounds, right? I've gone to that race probably since I got my first dirt bike when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I mean, I've never missed a Daytona. So to be able to line up and race it was really special. The hometown crowd, I had so many friends and family there. It was kind of scary, actually. I had so many people I knew coming and hanging out, and it was awesome, but didn't want to let them down. The track was really good. That type of dirt suits me well. Had kind of a bad luck, though. I felt really good all day, and then in my heat race, the whoop section was really steep, and they had changed the track a little bit for the night show, and I ended up, a lot of people crashed in them, and someone fell in front of me, and I hit their bike going through the whoop, so I ended up spraining my wrist pretty good. But yeah, Daytona didn't go ideally, but it was still really awesome getting to race it.
Great. So we also, like I said, by the way, guys, feel free to ask Tristan whatever you want. Just go ahead and type it in, and we'll ask the questions as they come in. So now that we kind of jumped a little bit talking about Supercross, my next question there for Tristan is, for those that are new to the sport, Could you explain a little bit what Supercross, what motocross is, for those that not really too familiar with the sport?
Yeah, for sure. So, you've got motorcycles, right? And then you've got dirt bikes. And basically, what I ride is a dirt bike. So it's got tires specific for riding in the dirt. And, you've got courses laid out. And we race all across the country. And basically, motocross is just going to be outdoors. So you're going to be riding, out in the hills, natural elevation, all that stuff. And then supercross would be in the stadiums and the arenas and stuff like that. But like I said, we're racing motorcycles, and there's upwards of 40 people on the track at once. Bunch of jumps, ruts. The track's always changing. The elements, the weather, rain, lightning, all that crazy stuff. So it's pretty brutal. But then the Supercross, like I said, you're indoors under the lights.
Great. So another question we have. Again, we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but that's okay. We're just having a conversation. So. One of the questions is, what do you do after a ride for recovery?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends. So if I'm racing Supercross, which is the indoor racing, after training during the day, it's going to be normally a gym session. So normally our schedule would be we'd ride at 10 o'clock, finish up by 1 or 2 o'clock, and then go to the gym around 3. But recovery-wise, a road bike ride is a great way to recover. Low heart rate, just go and get some miles, get the legs moving. But for outdoors, the workload's a lot more strenuous. We're doing upwards of like 2 35-minute motos with a warm-up as well in the middle of the summer when it's really hot. So recovering for me after outdoors is more like going and getting an ice bath or trying to just do nothing. I don't really want to hop on a bicycle at that point.
So outdoors obviously means the motocross, correct, right, Tristan?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, good. So you're talking about recovery, and we're talking about the sport of motocross and supercross. So what exactly? Physically, we hear all the time about football being a tough sport, soccer being a tough sport, very demanding. So. As a pro, could you tell us a little bit about how demanding or physical supercross is and motocross is on the body, and talk a little bit about your heart rate, the zones that you get into, that type of thing, so we could kind of look, understand again, what kind of effect this has on someone.
Yeah, definitely. Our sport, like I said, a lot of people, it's a very small sport in the grand scale of, compared to a football, baseball, or something like that. But all these guys are endurance athletes. The top people in our sports, they're good cyclists, runners. You really have to have a very good cardio base, first off, to be able to do it. But what I would say differs motocross from other sports is on top of, the conditioning you have to be able to do the duration of the races, it's pretty much an all-out sprint. So the intensity is just out the roof. As far as heart rates go, when I race outdoors, which is the motocross stuff outside, I wear a heart rate monitor. And this past summer, in the middle of my races, which are 35 minutes long, there's 2 of them. So my heart rate would average 195 beats per minute for 35 minutes. And then my max was 202, which, if anybody knows anything about heart rates, that's pretty much like as high as it can possibly go. And to average it, it was brutal. So that just kind of shows you the intensity that you have to have. But I would say another thing that is very demanding about racing is the injuries. A lot of times in other sports, if you're injured, you're kind of just, okay, I'm out for the season. But, for me, I've raced with broken wrists. I've had a lot of nagging stuff. I've got a torn meniscus right now in my left knee. And I've got a lot of problems that you just sort of have to fight through because, being a privateer, you got to get that paycheck, of course, and you got to get to the next race. So I'd say that's difficult, as well as the travel. Being a privateer, I don't always get to fly to the races. A lot of times it's old school. We load up the van or the truck or whatever, and we just head out and travel across the country. But, when you're racing on a Saturday and you have to travel on a Sunday across the country and then find time to ride and train and eat properly, your body just gets very worn down. So that is definitely probably one of the harder parts of the sport as well.
So we have another question from John, and speaking of heart rate, and he wanted to know, what type of heart rate at the start gate, where you at?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually did check it one time. I was really nervous before. I don't think it was Supercross. I think it was outdoors as well. But I was on the gate, and I want to say that it was like hovering around like 100 and probably 30 beats, which doesn't sound super high. But if your resting heart rate, if you're an athlete, a lot of guys, I mean, you're real low. So compared to my resting, it's pretty wild. Yeah, 130 beats. I mean, I'm just sitting there not doing anything, but you're just, your adrenaline's going, the bikes start up, you smell the race gas, and I think it's natural instincts for anybody to get a little nervous.
Yeah, definitely. Now, on a typical night of racing, let's just say on a Supercross or even a motocross. Well, let's start with Supercross, which is your indoor,
Sure.
in the stadiums and stuff like that. Could you give us an explanation as far as, or explain to us what exactly goes on that day as far as how do you get to, I know the main goal is to make the main event, which is the night show. So what do you need to do leading up to that point?
Yeah, so basically a typical routine for me would, if we have a hotel, leave the hotel early, get some breakfast, get over to the track about 9 o'clock, give or take. A lot of times our track walk, which is where you actually get to preview the track, and every weekend it's a different layout. So you get there, you're in the stadium, you pull up, go to track walk. Once I preview the track, you get back, make sure your bike's set up. Your practice schedule will be laid out for you. So depending on what practice you are, you get out there. You don't get a lot of time, so this is another part that's very difficult. You're having to learn a completely new track, and you only get about 5 minutes. You get actually 8 minutes of free practice, but really you have to get it all down ASAP, right? So you're hitting 80-foot jumps. You're up in the air super high, and you're having to hit all these new obstacles, and you don't get a whole day to kind of get it all settled in. So that's difficult. But after practice, you have to qualify into these races. So it's all time qualifying, and once you do your time qualifiers, you have to be top 36 fastest, and that will transfer you directly into the night show. So normally on any given weekend, there's probably going to be 60, 70 people trying to qualify. So you have to make sure your times are good enough to get into the night program. So then after practice, I normally will, get my gear off, get the bike all prepped up, make sure I have an early dinner. Some people take a nap, whatever it takes to get you all fueled up and ready to go. And then around 6:30 or so, you would get ready to head up to the track. Normally the races take off around 7, I believe, is the night program. So you have a heat race, and then if you qualify top 9 through the heat race, you go directly to the main event. And if you don't make it through the heat race, you have to go to the LCQ, which is the last chance qualifier. And then you'd race your main event, and then finish up late at night, and then pack your stuff up and head to the next race.
So speaking of that too, do you have a favorite track that you've ridden so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously a little biased. Daytona was just so much fun for me. I had a really, really cool experience getting to race there. That dirt was just kind of what I grew up riding. But other than Daytona, I really liked Atlanta. That was a cool track as well. So those are awesome. But as far as the outdoor races, my favorite track would be Redbud in Michigan. It's got the Rocco's Leap, which is a famous jump. It's the biggest jump in motocross. So that was really cool. And I love that place.
Cool. So we have another question from John, and he wants to know how do you combat arm pump, or do you suffer from arm pump, and if so, how do you deal with it?
Oh, John, that's a great question. I tell you what, if I had the answer to how to cure this, I would probably be rich right now. But to be fair, I would say arm pump, yes, I do get arm pump still. But I would say after all these years of having arm pump and, hearing different things from different riders and a lot of pro riders that I know, there's not a one-size-fit-all cure for it. So everyone is different. I know people that don't train, they don't eat properly, and, they hardly ride, but they don't get arm pump. And then, there's people like me, like during the season where I take it very serious, I prepare properly, and I try and ride a lot, and I still will get arm pump. So what I notice is whenever I drink lots of water, if you're dehydrated, that can give you arm pump. Also technique, body technique is a big thing. If you're riding and you're bad technique on the bike or bad form, it's almost like doing a rowing machine when you're riding, and that can pump up your arms as well. But I would say between those things and also just being calm. People don't talk about this a lot, but if you're really, really nervous and you're overthinking things, sometimes I think you maybe grab the handlebars a little too tight, or maybe you pull the clutch in a little bit differently than you would when you're riding, or those little things can make the difference between having arm pump and not.
Cool. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, just because I've known you for so long is, and we do have a lot of, when we started off in this, we had a lot of kids that rode dirt bikes, and the goals were to become pro, turn pro, however you say it, but now that you've been there, you are there, could you tell me a little bit about what it takes to start as someone riding on typical Saturday to where you are now? I mean, what was the road to get to that pro level? What does it take? I mean, obviously you have to be an awesome rider, have some really good skills, but what does it take to become pro for those kids out there that are listening?
It's a great question. I'd say being good at anything, the common denominator is having a good work ethic, right? You got to really work hard. Riding a motorcycle, it's a lot of fun, and it's what I love to do, and I've done it, for a long time. But I would say, looking back, I mean, the key is just sticking with it. You got to understand there's going to be a lot of good and bad, and it's not always easy. There was a lot of days where I wanted to quit, and a lot of days where I just thought, things are what's going to lead you to being a professional.
So I guess, bottom line is just kind of what we tell is just being consistently, sticking with it. So if you had to choose, I guess, between Supercross and Motocross, what is your favorite, the indoor or the outdoor?
Indoor is new to me. I personally am most comfortable outdoors, but obviously just because it's what I've done my whole life. The indoor racing is so new. You're under the lights. You've got the television. You can see yourself on TV every weekend when you're finished racing. You hear the fans screaming, and that's really neat as well. But I would say the rough outdoors, out in the heat, it's brutal. It's gnarly. It kind of separates the men from the boys, I guess you could say. I think that's probably my favorite.
So we're also gonna get into I see some questions coming in about supplements and stuff like that. So we're gonna get into that. I did have a specific some questions dealing with that. So but before we do, I do have that the questions that you guys are asking. I do have that on there. So. Before we get into that part of it, we want to talk a little bit about to Tristan about his training. What do you do? I know you kind of briefly, started talking a little bit about your recovery and stuff like that. But what do you do? Obviously, your race is on a Saturday night, so you have Monday through Friday. I know you're not just sitting back, watching TV. So you're obviously doing something. So if you could tell us a little bit about your training, what goes into getting ready for Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. So, and you hit the nail on the head. The goal is to be prepared for Saturday, right? So however you have to peak on a Saturday is ultimately most important. For me personally, we'd race on a Saturday, and then I would take Sunday off, and I would just recover. Normally, Sunday is a travel day for us, so if you're, say you're in some other state, you would head to the next place on a Sunday, and then Monday, I would try and get some type of recovery ride in, whether that be on a bicycle, run, if you're if you're staying at a hotel, at a gym. Personally, I like to do road biking a lot, so my dad's all into mountain bikes and bicycles, so I like to do an easy road bike ride, just loosen up the legs. But then I would say after that, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those are great days to get on the dirt bike. When you're in season, a lot of times they say like a rule of thumb is you ride a lot less, so you cut it in half normally, your volume on the dirt bike. So Preseason training though, it was about 4 days a week we would ride. And then during the season, I would ride like 2 days a week, if possible. Sometimes traveling to each race, you don't get that luxury of riding 3 or 4 times a week. But after that, really, it was just recovering. Like if I finished riding on Thursday, I would head to the race on be there Friday morning, and then pretty much just make sure you have tons of fluids in you, and make sure your diet's key, because you don't want to go in there feeling sluggish or anything, and feeling rough on Saturday. And obviously, getting a good night's sleep is very important as well.
So we're going to get into a little bit more about that, about training. But before we do, we have a couple questions coming in. I just want to get them before I forget. So the first one is you have the number 711. How did you get that number? What's the significance with that number, I should say?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was number 11 my whole life as an amateur, and really the story behind 11 was I was at my first race, and hey, we need a 2-digit number or just some kind of number, and all my dad and I had was electrical tape. So the easiest thing to make that was a 2-digit was just a number 11. Sort of stuck with that, and all these years later, I kind of just learned to love the number. But when you turn pro in motocross, you have to be a 3-digit number starting out. So they gave me the option. They were like, you can be 311, you can be 211, you can be 711. I was like, bingo, 711 it is. So I've just stuck with it since, and believe it or not, I've had a lot of people say they compliment the number, so I like it.
Well, that's an interesting way of picking your number. Next we have is John also wants to know your inspiration. What's your inspiration to race dirt bikes, and who's your favorite rider growing up?
Oh, I'd say favorite rider growing up. I was a huge Carmichael fan. I mean, I guess maybe I was just a bandwagon type of guy who was winning everything, so it's hard not to respect his work ethic. But I was also a huge Kevin Windham fan, loved his style. But as far as inspiration, yeah, I mean, just seeing all those guys, and they're normal people. They just are very, very, very talented on a motorcycle. But actually, I shouldn't even say talent. It's really a lot of work ethic, because ultimately it's all just hard work. Those guys are super good, and they're definitely talented. But I'd say what inspires me is just trying to get to that level, and racing my heroes, people that I grew up watching, and I do it every weekend. There's people that I've watched since I was a kid that I race every weekend now, and it's kind of surreal, but you have to kind of change your mindset and start trying to beat them now.
And also to John also wants to know your most memorable race as an amateur.
As an amateur, there was a race at the Winter Olympics, which is also known as Minios in Gainesville, and that was my local national. So being from Florida, that was every year when the Winter Olympics would come, I was always excited for that. But I think it was maybe 2014 or 2015, one of those years. I was racing the intermediate class on 450, and I actually borrowed the bike like the week before. I had hardly any time on it. I barely was riding. I wasn't really training like I do now. I was just riding for fun, and as much as I could. But I was trying to take that next step to getting better, and I actually ended up riding a 450, and I normally ride a 250. And being a bigger kid, I actually really rode well in the 450. But I started out racing the B classes that week, and I got a lot of really good finishes. I was running top 3 the whole week and really turned some heads, and actually I almost won a championship in the college board class. Fell with like a lap to go, but that was a big turning point for me as an amateur, and kind of showed me that, for someone from DeLand, Florida, that, my parents never rode, I don't know anything about it. I was like, maybe I can do this. So that was one of my standout moments.
Awesome. Cool. So getting back to, we'll talk a little bit more about training. So for those watching, we're a fitness facility, Elite Body. So that's how Tristan and I met. So we want to talk a little bit about your training, and I guess everybody as well, all the viewers, would like to know, again, do you do any kind of strength training? What is how important do you feel that is to your sport? And if you do strength training, what type of strength training do you do?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of guys in our sport are really, really big on the cardio, so a lot of road biking's going on, a lot of just endurance stuff, but strength training is, in my opinion, equally as important. Like I said, you taught me so many things from a young age that I still do to this day, and a lot of it is, a lot of things like deadlifts, squats, those kind of things. Like, I'm not going to say I sit there and, I don't do a lot of curls or nothing, it's motocross specific workouts, but there's a lot of things you can do in the gym that are going to seriously benefit you. The bikes are heavy. I race a 450 outdoors, which, my 450 is probably 250 pounds or whatever, so it's a heavy bike, and with all the rough tracks and how bumpy everything gets, you really got to be able to manhandle the bike and be very strong. So that's been a big part of my success, I would think, is even though I don't have the nicest equipment or whatever, I really try and focus on working hard and being strong, and I think that definitely makes a big difference. But lately, getting ready for outdoors coming up, the Supercross season is kind of on a little bit of a hiatus right now with everything going on, but I'm starting to prepare for the outdoor portion myself, and I've been trying to do in mornings I'll do a cardio, I've been running a lot. My wrist is kind of hurt from the Daytona crash a little bit, but I've been doing a lot of running in the mornings, and then in the evenings or something after riding, I've been doing a lot of strength training as well.
Yeah, so that's real quick. While Tristan was talking about that, it came across my mind when he was training, and we used to do a lot of tire flips, and I'm sure Tristan remembers tire flips and stuff like that. And this was before he was pro, but just to kind of go along with what Tristan was saying about hard work, consistency. I remember Tristan just being one of those kids that I would ask him to do things that were pretty tough, for a kid his age. And he worked out with a group of kids too, and these kids, they just gave it everything. I remember Tristan would just give it everything he had, doesn't matter how hard or how intense. He would just give it everything he had and put every bit of strength into what I asked him to do. So that is a testimonial, to Tristan to where he is now. Obviously putting in the work and on his way up. So with that, so also too, while we're on that topic of training and everything, let's talk a little bit about your nutrition. Okay, I know again you kind of touched briefly on it. So, you're eating. Are you the type of person where you just kind of just eat whatever you want? Do you track calories? Do you count calories? What does Tristan do? What is a typical eating regimen for Tristan?
To be honest, I think nutrition is a huge part of racing, and I definitely have only scratched the surface with it. I still think that's one of my biggest area of opportunities in my program is my nutrition. My parents growing up always ate very healthy, which was easy for me to have, an easy transition towards doing that as a professional or as an amateur also. But I don't count calories. I'm not over the top with it, but my biggest thing is, there's certain foods that sit well with me, and it took me years to learn this, but I think I definitely have a little bit of a dairy issue. So, as far as even supplements like proteins and stuff, I have to make sure to do plant-based stuff with no, milk in it, and cut out cheese. And my girlfriend is actually gluten intolerant. She can't do any gluten or anything, so she's gluten-free, and I've actually started doing that as well. A lot of people have different opinions about it, but me personally, cutting out dairy and gluten has been huge for me. And I also just try and eat clean. I don't eat candy. I don't drink soda. I just drink a lot of water and try and eat as clean as I can. And being an adult, it's hard. It's easy to just go buy McDonald's and do quick fast food. But meal prepping and trying to prepare chickens, fish, and rice, and having some vegetables as well. It makes a big difference, and it definitely has made my racing a lot better.
So you don't necessarily track or anything what you eat. You just kind of just play it by ear.
Yeah, because for me, I'm not trying to lose weight. Actually, I take that back. For the 250 and Supercross this year, I was trying to lose a little bit of weight, but I would say I cut back a little bit on my portion sizes when I would eat, but personally, no, like especially racing a 450, which is the biggest bike that you can race. It's what I race outdoors. Those bikes are fast and they're heavy, and being strong and bigger isn't really a bad thing actually. But yeah, I never starve myself. I eat plenty of food. Tracking calories for me, I don't do that. I know there are some racers that do. But I think my motto is as long as I'm eating healthy and I'm exercising a lot. I mean, I'm if anything, I'm having trouble keeping the weight on during the series, so I don't think it's ever a problem for me.
Good. So before we move on, another question from Carlos. He's a big. This Carlos is actually one of my clients, and he's a big Supercross fan and motocross fan. So he watches all the time, and Ricky Carmichael mentions you a lot on TV or mentions your name. So he wants to know if you know him personally.
No, Carlos, that's funny. I don't know Ricky. I see him all the time. It's kind of funny. He was like my idol, right? And every weekend I see him now, but I don't know him. He's spoken pretty fondly of me on television before, which I appreciate. But no, I don't know him. He's a really nice guy, though. I have spoken to him before at the races, but he's definitely someone that I would love to have a conversation with and bounce some ideas off of, because if anyone knows something about our sport, it is definitely Ricky Carmichael.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So cool. So kind of keeping along the same track, we touched a little about your strength, your nutrition. So let's go into the last, which is supplementation. Now, you did mention that you try to stay away, or you are staying away from milk, so you're plant-based. So do you take anything else supplement-wise, as far as anything for endurance? What's your supplementation like?
Yeah, I do a lot of sports drinks, so I'll do a lot of like electrolyte blends and stuff like that. I'm not like a diehard, one brand type of guy. I'm willing to try different stuff. I do have some support from Rhino Power, which is a motorcycle specific, supplement group, and they've got some really good products. They have a recovery pill that has really helped a lot, actually, and it's very broad, right? So you read their supplements and it's like recovery pill, endurance or whatever. And I was kind of, at first, I didn't really know what to think of it, but after trying their stuff, I think it really does work, and they have really good ingredients. So I definitely take a lot of their stuff before, cycles, and even during the day. They have a motivation pill too, which is like a caffeine type pill, and if I'm feeling a little sluggish on race day, if I take one of those things, I perk up instantly. So I definitely try and take a few supplements. Is it going to make or break my racing? I don't think so. But ultimately, the way I look at it is, if it can help me just 1%, it's worth it.
Gotcha. Yeah, Rhino is a really good product line. We actually dealt with them a little bit as well, so they're definitely good products, especially for the sports, for Supercross, motocross, that type of thing, the endurance sports.
Yeah.
So as far as what about, obviously, the big hype, recently, or not recently, over the past few years, has been in motocross too as well. I know Chad Reed is big with the whole CBD thing now, as far as promoting it, and I know some other racers are too as well. And it's and it's obviously a lot of people are promoting in every single sport. So what's your take on CBD? Do you use it? What's your, if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you're right. CBD has came on strong in our sport. I mean, every sport, I should say. Personally, myself, I'd heard about it, and I didn't really know a whole lot about it. But after hearing, researching some stuff, kind of a funny story. But my grandmother, she has like a CBD. I don't know how to explain it, but she basically grows it and does all that stuff herself, and she has her own supplement line, I guess you could say. I tried a CBD healing stick, or healing balm, I guess you could say, and it really helped. I haven't tried a lot of different brands, but the one I tried, it really helped with joints and stuff like that. I've got a bad wrist. I've had surgery on it, and I've had I have a screw in it right now. And rubbing some of that stuff on it, I mean, it really, in my opinion, I thought it alleviated a little bit of the pain. it's not going to make you, if you've got a really, hurt leg or hurt arm, you're not going to be able to just go start using it just by putting it on there. But anything that helps is worth it for me. So during the season, I found myself lathering up on CBD oil quite a bit.
So you're basically just dealing with you haven't you're just doing the topical. You haven't tried or used the drops or anything like that.
I have not used the drops yet, only the topical stuff. But my whole thing was, it's pretty expensive to get some of it, and I didn't want to bite the bullet and get a bunch of it until I had, kind of heard like, hey, is this worth trying or not? But no worries.
Yeah, we just had a little technical difficulty. It's okay. So I guess this was something that I was going to bring up too as well. But with CBD, yeah, we're a big fan of CBD as well. We actually carry it at our facility. So it's a great product. And it definitely helps. So for those out there, definitely do your research. We always encourage everybody to do their research on products before you try it. There's just so much out there especially on CBD. So Tristan, can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, we're just yeah, so one of the questions I was going to ask, but somebody already is asking it right now, is so with how many days a week are you on the bike, and with everything up in the air right now with Supercross, how does this affect your training on and off the bike? So with the Supercross season halted right now, I know it's not completely over. How does this affect you right now as far as, are you still riding a lot to try to, what are the plans? Are they going to resume the season? Is it, what's going on?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of interesting, as a racer in the thick of everything. We went to Daytona and raced Daytona, and looking back, I had no idea that was going to be the last race. But then we went to Indianapolis, which was going to be the next weekend. And I drove all the way to Indianapolis, and they told us the race was canceled. So, we turned around and headed back home, and basically they've kind of had us on hold. And with everything going on, they can't really tell you, hey, we're racing next weekend, or, they don't know. It's all up to the governments and the states and all that stuff. So basically what I've been told, though, is that the Supercross series is going to resume. They're hoping actually at the end of May, I believe. But I have no idea how they're going to do it. Me personally, I was kind of injured after Daytona. I had sprained my wrist really bad, so my riding was limited anyways. I rode one day in between Daytona and Indianapolis, and I pretty much just told myself, look, if I'm hurt or if I'm not, ready to go, I may just get ready for outdoors and just focus on that. But with everything going on, it kind of worked out in my favor, honestly. I kind of let my wrist heal up a little bit, and I resumed riding. I actually rode yesterday, and I'm going to ride tomorrow as well. So I would say a typical training, boot camp, you're riding 3 to 4 days a week. Right now, I'm probably doing half of that, maybe 2 days a week. 2 or 3, but I'm going to start ramping up slowly and trying to get my off the bike training on point as well.
Gotcha. Good. So we're getting a bunch of questions on. A lot of people want to know how to get in contact with your grandmother. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. But anyway, my next question for you is also as we're on the season basically coming to. Just ending suddenly with everything going on. So what, with outdoor season coming up, is that just going to take over Supercross, or, do you know anything about that or how that's going to work for the fans out there as far as not getting their Supercross or motocross fix?
Yeah, so I agree. Listen, even as a racer, I'm dying to watch it or just something, be around it. I need to get back to the races. But from what I've heard, there's a guy, Steve Mathis with Pulp MX. I did a podcast with him recently, and he knows pretty much the ins and outs of the sport. And he told me that they're planning on they have 7 races left and they want to do 7 races in 4 weeks for the Supercross. So they need to get those races finished because, there's some championship contenders going on with Eli Tomac and Ken Roczen. Those manufacturers don't want to just stop and, crown Eli Tomac the champion because, they've got a lot of time and money invested in those guys. So I think they're going to do everything in their power to finish off the series one way or another. And the word on the street is they're going to go to Glendale, Arizona, and try and do all the racing and do double headers. So instead of racing on a Saturday night, they'll probably do, racing on a Monday, racing on a Tuesday, or skip a day, go to Thursday, and, try and knock out as much as they can, but all from the same venue. And it goes without saying, I think it would all be with no fans just because of the coronavirus outbreak and stuff. So that's going to definitely throw a winch in the outdoor series, but I don't know exactly what will happen. The first round is at WW for the outdoors, and that'll be June 13th is what it's scheduled to be. Whether or not that happens, I have no idea. As a racer, it's our job to be prepared for it in case it does, but it's definitely tricky because, I don't know how they're going to do both. But no one's telling us, as the racers, we're not really getting updated too much. So I have no idea.
Gotcha. So here's a kind of quite again for the kids and the parents out there that ride and have their kids that are in motocross and supercross and trying to move forward with them. So as a privateer, could you tell us a little bit about financially as far as money-wise, as far as what does a privateer make? What is obviously the ultimate goal is to become a sponsored rider. So right now, being a privateer, do you have any sponsors? Does it cost you to go racing? Do you get, financially, where do you stand?
Yeah, definitely. So racing is expensive. Don't let me get you wrong. So to just sign up for a pro race is $250. So if you want to do, a full series, you're going to spend quite a few $1,000s just to sign up. So that's not even racing it. That's just to do the entry fee, right? As far as payouts go, it differs depending on what class you race. So in the outdoor races, I race a 450, and normally the 450 class pays more. That's the premier class. That's where the best guys are. For Supercross, I raced a 250. So for Supercross this season, I only got to do 4 races, but making the night show, which is just qualifying through the time practice into the night program, that would pay me like $700, give or take. And then, with contingencies or with gear money, you can add a couple hundred to that. If you make the main event, you're going to get probably closer to like $1,000, give or take. But if I was on a 450 racing Supercross, just making the night show would pay you $1,000. And then you get your, on top of my gear money or other contingencies you might have, you could get quite a bit more. So that's what I do in the outdoors, and it's very similar. So I would say if you race a 450, depending on how you do, it's all result varied. For me, my goal is to walk out of there with enough money to pay for the next race, pocket some, put something in the bank or whatever, and then, be able to come out of there cash flow positive rather than negative. So it definitely doesn't pay as good as I think it should. But like I said, this is coming from a privateer. I'm just starting out. As my results get better, the money will get better. But racing the outdoor motocross series, normally I would say each weekend, give or take, you're probably making $1,100, $1,200, finishing anywhere from 15th to 30th. So if you can beat that area and start getting in the top 10, the money will get better. But I believe if you are a privateer like me and you went and won a race, I think the payout is probably like maybe you make $15,000 from the purse, and then the contingency for riding like a KTM would probably match that. So you'd probably make about $30,000. But these factory riders, the rumor is if they win a race, it's like $150,000 or so. So the money is a lot better for them. But like I said, hopefully the goal is to get more sponsorship help and more people to help it, make it possible to go racing.
So obviously you just mentioned one of the questions I should ask you was your brand of bike, and you just said it's KTM, right? Is what you ride now?
Yep.
So, do you have any sponsors right now, or?
Yeah. So Donald Davis is a friend of mine from Jacksonville, and we started up a privateer team called Silverback Racing, and he's been a big support for me. Jason Beck out of Port Orange, he does my suspension and my motor work, and he's actually my first sponsor ever, and he's a really, really big asset to my program. FXR, which is a motocross gear company, they support me as well with gear, and they help me a ton. I've got a lot of personal sponsors and stuff, like gear stuff, and the biggest thing though is the bike, right? So the motorcycle I ride costs, $10,000, $11,000, and I have one that I'm financing right now from a dealership, so I paid a normal price, like if anyone were to go to a dealership. So that's difficult being a privateer because if I had free bikes all the time and I could sell them and make that money and go towards another bike, or if someone was a manufacturer was paying me to ride the bike, it would make the whole process a lot more doable. But it's a tough situation I'm in. Like I said, I have a lot of people that are supporting me and helping me. Kelly Shires, Don Dempsey. I got some local people that are stepping up to help get into the races financially. But ultimately, the goal is manufacturer help. That's kind of where the whole factory rider term comes from. That's when you get Husqvarna, KTM, Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, those brands. If you get picked up by one of those companies and they say, look, we're going to give you a salary, we're going to take you racing, we're going to pay for everything. All you do is ride, train, and show up and race. So that's kind of the goal ultimately. But taking baby steps to get there, and you got to work hard and have a little bit of luck on your side as well.
Gotcha. So with so as far as being on the, I know you've ridden some other brands and stuff like that before. I remember you used to ride Kawasaki and right? Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So for the bike enthusiasts out there, what's your favorite as far as brand that you've ridden? Obviously, I'm assuming it's KTM because that's what you're on now, right? Or
well, I mean, I'm not biased. Listen, I'd ride any bike, of course, but they're all good. The simple question is nowadays, it's like what bike, which bike is the best? I get that a lot. Which one do you like? Ultimately, every single manufacturer, every brand is good. I mean, there's not really a bad dirt bike out there that's new. The technology is so good that they're all pretty much on par. I would say though the KTM is the most advanced in my opinion. You've got hydraulic clutch, brakes. You've got the most horsepower. It's the lightest bike, very updated. Every year there's something new coming out of those things. And as a privateer, someone that's paying to go racing, and I don't have a big budget to make my bike super modified and faster and all that stuff. So the goal is to find something that is right out of the box, the most competitive. And a KTM is probably going to give you the most competitive bike from just a stock, platform. So I would say, to be honest, the KTM is probably the best bike. KTM and Husqvarna, they're like the same bike. But the Kawasaki's a great bike. They're all really good. I've rode all of them, and I love them. I love every bike, honestly. It's all preference. I've rode a KTM for a few years now, but I spent my whole amateur career on a Kawasaki, so you can't go wrong with either.
So let's just say your Chad Reeds, your all those guys out there, James. Obviously their bike. Can you tell us a little bit about their bike, the guys that are factory sponsored compared to your bike, right? You had mentioned that your bike costs about $10,000. So if you look like a Cooper Webb or Eli Tomac or something like that, or Roxon, is there a difference? I know they're on a 450 and you're on a 250. So let's look at the 250 riders, for instance. Is there a difference with their bike compared to your bike, as far as being on a factory? Because you said your ultimate goal again is to have a factory sponsorship. So what is the difference in the bikes?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. I mean, whether you're on a 250 or a 450, the factory riders in that class have parts. They've got tires that are spec tires that I couldn't purchase. No matter how much money you have, you can't buy that tire. Or, engine parts and suspension components. There's a lot of things that are one-off and, that are made specifically from these manufacturers and, Japan and all these different countries and stuff. So I would say, to answer the question, my bike is basically a stock motorcycle, outdoors and supercross, with a few bolt-on parts, whereas a factory rider, they're going to have the testing behind every part. So on top of having a faster bike, better turning bike, better handling bike, they have access to all these resources and they can test every part and make their bike tailored specifically for them. Whereas me, a lot of times, and I'm not complaining, I'm grateful for any help I can get, but a lot of times it's kind of like, all right, here, we got this new suspension setting or, new whatever, and you just got to show up and race it. You don't get time to ride it and feel it out, and, not only that, but it's obviously not going to be quite as good of a quality. So you kind of just have to roll with the punches in racing, to get to that level where you're a factory rider. You got to pay your dues and all that stuff. But it's a significant difference in motorcycle, and also a big difference too is I raced the same bike that I crafted this year. So I had one 250 that I practiced on, raced on, and it wasn't even my bike. Actually, Martin Cox with Super Cool Bike Shop in Gainesville was kind enough to lend it to me for the season. And it was the only bike I rode the whole time. So, when I'm houring it up practicing during the week, that bike is the one I have to race on Saturday night, against all these factory bikes. So as it's getting worn out and tired, I'm still having to keep racing it. So these other guys have, better bikes, but they're also practice bikes, spare bikes, race bikes and all that stuff. So it's a big disadvantage, but ultimately it's just kind of what we have to deal with.
Right. So we'll have one more question for you here and then we'll wrap up. Carlos wants to know your riding gear, your boots and your helmet. Do you have a specific brand that you go to, or what do you like, or what are you currently using?
Yeah, currently I wear FXR. They support me, and they're actually a new, I shouldn't say new gear company, but they're based out of Canada, and it's a really, really nice gear set. I mean, they make everything. They make helmet, boots, gloves, goggles, the whole nine, but I wear their jerseys, their pants, I wear the gloves, socks, and all that stuff, and it's really, really nice. The gear, it kind of, you don't even notice it when you're wearing it. It kind of feels like it just slips right on, super minimalistic, which I love, really bright, flashy colors, which is cool. But boots, I wear CD boots. They're really good boots, very minimalistic also. They shift well. I have a pretty big foot, and it's always been hard for me to shift and, hit the brake and stuff. So I really like the boots. They're really supportive. Helmets, I wear a Bell helmet. I've never had any issues with it. It seems like a very safe helmet. And then goggles, I wear Scott goggles. And another big thing is a lot of people wear knee braces and all that stuff. I personally don't wear any knee braces. I wear like a modified knee pad, I guess you could say. It's by EDS that makes it. So that's a little bit different. But my whole goal is I like to be as comfortable as I can when I ride. You obviously want to brace for the impact, and make sure you're protected, which I do as well. But ultimately, for me, I just like to feel comfortable because, when you're racing at a high level, you don't want to have anything bothering you when you're on the gate or when you're in the middle of a long race. You don't want to have, something falling down or sliding around on you and being uncomfortable.
Gotcha. All right, well, cool. So Tristan, we'll wrap up. Very good conversation with Tristan. I hope you guys. He answered all your questions and gave you a little bit more insight into the world of AMA racing, Supercross, and Motocross. So Tristan, just to wrap up, could you tell everybody how they could? Do you have your Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff? They could follow you, kind of go along with you on the ride. Do you have any events coming up locally? That you're going to be at, anything like that you want to let us know about?
Yeah, definitely. As far as social media platforms, my Instagram is just Tristan Lane 711. Pretty straightforward, just my name and my number. And then Facebook, just Tristan Lane. Follow me, and I like to, I post as much as I can, and you can kind of keep up with everything that's going on when I'm racing. But as far as races coming up, the outdoor series is coming up, Pro Motocross. It's supposed to start June 13th, like we talked about. I don't know if it will or not, but I will be planning to do as many of them, if not all of them, as I can. So look for me in the 450 class. I'll be racing the KTM again, number 711, and that's the goal. Is just go racing all summer.
Cool. All right, well, that's going to do it for us. A little conversation with Tristan. And again, if you guys, want to reach out, you can reach out to us too as well. If you have further questions, So unfortunately, like I said, we have to wrap it up. So if you have questions, you could reach out to us, you know, or you could reach out to Tristan. This video, if you didn't get to see all of it, is going to be on our YouTube channel, which is Elite Body FL. So feel free to check it out, the whole entire video, if you missed any of it. So it was very, very good information Tristan gave us. So we look forward to, you know, catching up, and we'll keep track of Tristan through the outdoors and wish him the best of luck. So thanks, Tristan.
Thank you guys so much for having me.